All right, all right, all right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. If you're a veteran and you're struggling or feel like you're leading a path towards the darkness, stop and think about those who are around you. Think about how they truly value you, how they will miss you. You are not alone. You need to talk to someone. Someone will listen to you. If you feel like you will be a burden to someone, or you feel embarrassed to talk to your friends or family, call the hotline at 988 and press option 1. That's 988 and press option 1. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at _MisFitNation. It's _MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell. This will keep you up to date on our latest news, our episodes, and any live shows that we do. And also keep you up to date with the stories of our great guests. Speaking of which, our next guest is a bass player, a music director to the stars. He has performed 50 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, 50. He has appeared in 12 Broadway shows and has been inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame. He can currently be seen on tour with Humble Pie. His new memoir, Am I Famous Yet? Memoir of a Working Class Rock Star, is also out now. So without further ado, let's welcome Funkboy, also known as Ivan Bodley, to the show. Welcome, Ivan.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Awesome, man. Doing great. Great to have you on here, and great to have an artist like yourself that has been around a lot of, I guess, famous artists that you have pushed to successful careers and helped you to, I guess, build your own career as you went.
Yeah, maybe the second one more. They helped pay my rent more than I helped pay theirs, I think. But it all somehow it all worked out for both of our advantage.
Definitely does. So, Ivan, if you don't mind, tell the MisFitNation a little bit about yourself from as far back as you want to go to how you got to where we are now.
Man, it sort of was like one foot in front of the other. So, it feels like a long story because I've been doing it a long time. I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was raised on, Southern soul music and the music of Gladys Knight and the Pips and Stevie Wonder and Sam and Dave and all those kind of things, So I grew up listening to all that and went off to school in New Orleans. That was my first stop, was New Orleans. So I got really steeped in the music of that city. I didn't start playing bass, which has become my chosen profession now, until I was a senior in high school. So I really came to it kind of late in terms of people. Usually you hear about people have been playing since they were 3 or 4 years old or something like that. That wasn't my experience at all. I came to it very late. So, when I left home to hit the road and find my fame and fortune, it was not as a musician. I was going to be like a biomedical engineer. That was my first thing I was going to do, and I gave that up after a couple of years and said, all right, I'll get a psychology degree. And then what I was really doing was majoring in college radio. I was working for my campus station down in New Orleans at WTUL, Tulane University. And from there, I went into the music business as a publicist for Epic Records. I used to work for Epic Records back in the day. It was my first job out of school. And after about, 3 years of that, I realized the music business has nothing to do with music at all. It's all about marketing. They could literally be selling soap. And I had one of the product managers at Epic Records tell me, they said, I don't know anything about music. I could be selling soap. And he was right. But, he made people like Gloria Estefan like a huge star because he knew about marketing. He knew all about that. It was great, but it wasn't a creative sort of pursuit. So I handed back in my corporate Amex card, my expense account, all that kind of stuff. I said, let me try to make a go of it. Went back to school, went to music school this time because I figured that's what I wanted to do. And after that, got the training I thought I needed to try to make a go of it as a professional in a field that there's absolutely no guarantee of success in. It's a real roll of the dice, and somehow I haven't had a day job in almost 30 years now. So somehow it worked out. I'm not sure exactly how, but here we are.
I guess all the stars aligned and the water parted ways for you. So we kind of flipped the areas of living. I'm living in Tennessee now. You were living in New York City. I'm from Jersey City. So
right on.
Actually from Chattahoochee. So it's a big jump for you to go from Chattahoochee to NOLA and then probably around the world to get back to New York City. So
It felt that way, but maybe there's like a prisoner exchange, between New Jersey and Tennessee. So we just had swapped one for one.
yeah, we both took the weird train, the midnight train. I wound up in Clarksville. So I mean, it's awesome to hear your journey. And Tulane University is a great university down there in NOLA, and still is. It's the green. I think it's called the Green Wave. I think they call themselves down there.
Exactly right. You got that. Nailed it.
Did you play any of the bars down there when you were in school?
I did, yeah. I started to do my first semi-pro gigs down there. So, Jimmy's Music Club was a big mainstay for me as a fan, as an attendee of shows, and also as a player. Played at Tipitina's many times. Played the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival a few times. One of the first sort of high-level kind of national gigs I did was using as a pickup band musician with Bo Diddley. I played with Bo 3 times when he came through New Orleans. So, like, I knew somebody who knew the booking agent, kind of thing. Got hired in to do that. So I kind of had these semi-pro experiences at that time, and was also through the radio station was helping to promote those shows. So I was meeting the artists that the record labels would send down to be interviewed on the station, so that we'd help promote their shows. Like I met the Red Hot Chili Peppers in 1984. When they were in a van, like, Flea had one bass, and if he broke a string, the gig was over. I mean, I saw him do that in front of 15 people the first time they came through town, stuff like that. So, it was a kind of circuitous path that I wove for myself. And then when I gave up the business thing again, like I said, I did have training now, but there's no guarantee. Nobody in 30 years has ever asked to see my Berkeley diploma. Like, they don't like, are you sure you're a music school graduate? I'm like, it doesn't matter. It has no bearing in the working world. But then very slowly, again, one foot in front of the other. Like the first gig I got when I got back to New York, at 92 is when I landed back here after music school. A friend of mine's cousin was dating a guy who was the music director for the Shirelles, the great rock and roll classic act, and they needed a bass player, and it was a last minute thing, and they knew that I just come from music school, so they figured, like, this guy came to see me play at a $50 blues gig in New York City at the Ear Inn. I think it started at midnight, it's like midnight to 3 in the morning kind of thing, and he had a manila envelope in his hand. And I believe in his mind what he was thinking, like, if this guy can play at all, he's got the gig. Because it was one of those situations where we had to drive 5 hours to Massachusetts, play at a family fun fair set up in the church parking lot, do 2 sets, and then come back to New York like the same day. It was kind of a grueling gig, and they needed somebody quite desperately. And, again, if this guy can play at all, he's just got a music school, he's probably fine. So he watched the first set of this blues gig, and he handed me the manila envelope and said, you got the job. And what was in there was a normal bias cassette tape copy of the show, of the live show, and a stack of sheets that were just like chord charts. So here, learn the show and meet the van at 40th and 9th, 40th Street and 9th Avenue behind Port Authority. On whatever day it was, probably Saturday. And drive up there. And I did. I did my homework, and I got the gig. And from that, like, one thing followed into another. Like, the drummer from that recommended me to another gig, and that's all of it sort of followed from that. It took 30 years, but yeah, I got 50 Rock and Roll Hall of Famers on the resume after all that time.
But I'm sure during those 30 years of gigging and playing with amazing people, it kind of flew by for you, I'm sure, as you went through it.
Well, it feels that way sort of in retrospect, looking back. But at the time, it took all of 30 years. I felt every road mile. I still got it on my tail, from the car seat or whatever. But yeah, like I say, kind of one foot in front of the other. And the other thing too is you never know what was going to lead to what. Like I'm saying, that $50 blues gig I was doing, led to. I've been playing with the Shirelles on and off since '93, I think. So Shirley just retired this year. She's 81.
Wow.
She retired. The pandemic made her think, like, no gigs. I think I'm okay. I've been touring for 60 something years. Like, maybe I'm good. I still talk to her. So that led to Yeah, close to almost a 27, 28 years of touring on and off, from a $50 blues gig. You just don't know. There's no
Right.
way to know.
And that's, I mean, that's amazing. And I know you call yourself the working class rock star. Explain to the audience what that means to be a working class rock star.
Working class, because I work for a living. I I've got you've seen in the book, you've seen all the pictures of me standing next to famous people. So there's me. For I'm next to a famous person for at least 1/500th of a second, long enough for a camera shutter to go off. But and I've done famousy things with famous people. But I lift my own amps. I drive myself to the gig. I work for a living. Like I definitely spend hours at the house transcribing music, preparing, doing all the homework it requires, and then, literally lifting amps, while wearing a tuxedo, loading into the catering hall to play the Lipschitz, Bar Mitzvah, and Piscataway. I do all that stuff in between all the rock star stuff.
What's the strangest event you ever done? That strangest gig you had to go do?
Oh man, so many, and this is one of the reasons why I wrote the book. Like I've got such a collection of just oddball things, and one of the stories I tell in the book, because people ask that question a lot, like what's the strangest one you did? I think the strangest one I did, I got hired to play a wedding gig in Manhattan. So far, we're on normal territory, right? And it's with a little acoustic trio. I'm playing acoustic bass, there's acoustic guitar, and little drums played with brushes, which is kind of like unusual for a wedding gig, because usually a wedding gig is like a big dance party kind of thing. So to have like a little light cocktail sort of trio was a little unusual. And then we went to play at this place. I think it was called the Angel Orange Center. It's an old decommissioned synagogue on the Lower East Side, from I believe, I want to say built in the 1800s sometime. It was a very Gothic looking building. It's very old and creaky and rickety and spooky. It looks like, you could shoot a vampire movie there, no problem. And every time they rent it out as a catering hall too. So I played there many times. So again, you get a call for a wedding gig, playing at this synagogue on the Lower East Side, no problem. I know where it is. I know the parking in that neighborhood's awful. I know everything about how to get in there. We get in there, and they've got the thing lit up. They put all this theatrical lighting in it to make it look even extra spooky. And they've got a florist has come in and assembled basically an island. There's an island in the middle of the floor. There's a sweetheart table with two chairs at it, and big nice dinner table, and it's on a platform, and around the platform is a moat. They've made a moat, and they've constructed this canopy of trees made, like brought in by a florist, like this extravagant, unbelievable setup, right? The kicker was there were no guests at this wedding. It was like $100,000 wedding, and it was just the couple in the room and this little trio in the corner. It was the spookiest, weirdest thing. We ended up calling it the Hannibal Lecter wedding, because we would not have been surprised to find out the next day in the paper that somebody was eaten by their new spouse, at the at the conclusion of the evening. But like caterers would come in and out with it was like a 5-course meal, and everything was sort of normal, and they even had like a first dance and a cake cutting and all the things you do at weddings, but nobody was there. Not anybody was there. It was the spookiest thing we've ever done.
Spooky, seemed borderline crazy, but I guess that's what they wanted, and hopefully they
Hey,
were happy.
no family or no friends. I don't know what it was, but a lot of money to spend. It was a full ticket wedding. Just didn't
Wow.
invite anybody.
Maybe they didn't want to share the experience with anyone but themselves, I guess.
I know.
Wow.
There was a photographer there too. Not a videographer, so they have pictures of it. But I, yeah, really odd.
So
Really odd.
it's them and then you guys playing in the corner somewhere. That's amazing. So at what point during your journey did you decide, hey, I need to start writing this stuff down and create a memoir so I have something to say, hey, I did all this?
What would happen was, invariably somewhere we'd be doing a sound check, and then there'd be a dinner break, so the whole band would be sitting around a table, and if something funny or odd or weird had happened during that day, it would always put me in mind of something else that happened that was weirder or more extravagant or at a previous gig. So I would be, we'd be sitting around this dinner table, and I'd be telling, hey man, this reminds me of the time we were in such and such doing so and so, and then you're not gonna believe what happened. And I just have like so many of these bizarre, weird, funny, goofy stories over the years. I would tell them, and people around this, my bandmates would all say like, you got to start writing this stuff down, man. You've got like a ton of these things. You probably got a book in it. And I used to write, back in my record company days, as a publicity person, a publicist, I was writing the artist biographies and some of the album liner notes and, press releases and stuff like that. So I've always kind of had the writing gene a bit. And wrote some reviews for magazines, years ago. I haven't done it in a long time. So about, I want to say maybe 4 years ago now, I sat down during the wintertime, because the wintertime is our slowest season. Summers, we're doing outdoor concerts, we're doing weddings, funerals, and bar mitzvahs, and all that kind of stuff. So we're busy, busy, busy. But sometimes in January and February, you can sit around for like 2 months and not do a whole lot. So I sat down and I started writing this stuff out, and write, a couple pages a day, and then come back the next day and write another couple pages and recount another sort of story, and did about most of it about 4 years ago. Got almost all the way finished, and then got busy again and never quite got it finished. And I don't know if you heard, but about 2 years ago, suddenly all the gigs shut down. We couldn't go nowhere for like 15 months. We sat home with no gigs. There was no place to go, no place to play. Nothing was allowed. So I had plenty of time on my hands. And what I was trying to do was make lemonade out of the lemons that life had given us. And I had time to finish the book, get it formatted, get it copy edited, get it, all the artwork together, and did all my stuff, got it all released on Amazon, put out into the world. And I'm so glad I did it. It's been such a rewarding experience, and people that have read it really seem to respond to it well and find it funny and engaging. And the other thing too is like, all my years of doing artistic pursuits, when if you're working for money, playing for somebody else, you're making money, again, weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, or playing concerts, whatever you're doing. But anytime you want to put out your own record or your own original project, it becomes a money pit. You got to pay the other musicians, you got to pay for studio time, you got to pay, so it's always, you almost never, ever, make back what you put into your independent things, right? It's just the nature of the business. It's fine. And this book actually turned a profit. Like I've actually made like a month. I'm not rich, I made a month's rent off of it, kind of thing. But I'm like, when has an independent project my whole life ever turned a profit? I'm like, this is amazing. I should have been doing this all along, I think, maybe.
And that's kind of the amazing thing of what Amazon has done with to help the self-published or indie author to get their stuff in there basically for bottom dollar to get in. Besides paying for a copy editor, you probably didn't have to pay for anything unless maybe the cover art to get that thing published. And it was amazing.
I did it all myself. Yeah. I did it all myself. It's like I trained myself to figure out, Photoshop and all this stuff. And, I had time on my hands. I mean, I kind of do some of that stuff, but yeah, I just formatted it myself. And it's the kind of the great thing about the internet in general, in terms of not just Amazon, but like YouTube and everything else. Like, when I started in the music business, working for a major record label, there were 6 major record labels at the time. There's like 1 now, but they were the gatekeepers. So like to get to the marketplace, you had to go through these distribution networks. Like you had to get a yes from some A&R manager at at some major record label to even get a shot at getting your stuff out to radio and MTV and whatever else the avenues of promotion were those days. But now it's wide open. Anybody can get there. Like you can put up, you can record yourself and put yourself on YouTube and have instant worldwide distribution right now, which is a blessing and a curse, because not only can you do it, everybody else can do it too. So like, how do you kind of rise above that and sort of, get any clicks or any views or whatever it is, any downloads kind of thing. So it has opened up the game. Just it opened up to everybody, which is, I think, great, because now anybody who's got something to say can absolutely have their day in court, have their day on the stump saying what they got to say.
Exactly. And even with the podcast world now, you don't have to be Joe Rogan to have a show now. You can be That's just right. average Joe like me, the MisFitNation, and be able to talk to amazing guests the same way and get that voice out there and give people a voice, a platform to tell their stories and share their knowledge with the world. And I think it's a great thing that we have transitioned to.
it's the great equalizer in a way. Like anybody can do it, you know. And I support that. It's the the ultimate democratic ideal. You know, anybody can get out here, excuse me, and say what they got to say. You know, again, the next trick is like how do you sort of like gain the audience? You know, but that's the kind of problem you want to have. You know.
That's a good first world problem to have right there, and
Exactly.
in dealing with its fun. So.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked earlier about your butt being in the car seat for all those days. A lot of people out there, they hear the word rock star or musician, and they think tour and the touring life is glamorous. Let's go into the life of the rock star on the road there.
It's all that time on the bus. I haven't spent that many time on buses. A lot of the tours I do are fly dates, spot dates, driving dates. You know, a little bus time. I think there's some more of that about to come up in the future. I've driven the van, you know, for as many times as I've been driven around. You know, I'm certainly the van driver. Last two humble pie tours, I probably spent as much time behind the wheel, you know, of a Sprinter pulling a U-Haul trailer as anything else. And yeah, all glamour all the time. Don't believe what anybody tells you. It's all it's all it's all fun and games. But yeah, no, it's work, it's travel. You know, I think the sort of running joke that I have with a lot of my musician buddies at this level is like, we'll do the gig for free. That we love playing. That's not what you're paying us for. You're paying us for the travel, the logistics, the setup, like trying to get from Cleveland to Chicago, you know, and get set up and get your gear checked and get the sound check and get the monitors right and get all that, you know, all that stuff is exhausting. And then when the curtain goes up, you're like, hey, showtime. And you got to be sort of, you know, on your game and not grumpy and not tired and not hungry and not, you know, PO'd from the whatever happened in the parking lot the day before at the outside the Wawa when you're getting fueled up, you know. So it's there definitely challenges too. And the other thing too is like I think, you know, people sort of think like, you know, when you get to a real rock star level, you fly to the gigs, right?
Right.
And what I can tell you about that, because I've done a ton of that, is that's even more exhausting than driving because when you're flying, you're usually trying to get the first flight out in the morning. So you're getting like a 6 a.m. flight out because you want to have a little leeway time if something screws up, like it's delayed, you miss a connection, this, that, and the other thing. You want to get to where you're going as early as you can so you can have, you know, all the screw up time, you know, have adjustment time. Or sometimes there's only one flight a day to, you know, out of Muscle Shoals, Alabama, coming coming to Atlanta, with to then get you back to Newark to get you back to, you know, I've had connections go bad that way. So, you know, the gig will get over at you know, 11 o'clock at night, you know, and you come off stage just full of adrenaline, and you know you can't just drop off and go right to sleep. You know, you're going to get to bed and the hotel, and you're going to look at a hotel for 3 hours. Then that alarm goes off, and you're like, okay, now we get to go do it all over again. You know, it's exhausting. You know, just the lack of sleep that can happen on an airplane tour. I've certainly done that, and that's those are the toughest ones for me, I think.
All right, yeah, and I can see that, and especially coming from the hub you're at there, and how many cancellations happen in even with 3 airports right there in New York City, you have cancellations of flights so often to come south or even west that it's hard to get the perfect flight to your location. So I really understand that there.
100%, 100%. The other thing too, like I remember the first time I played with Little Anthony and the Imperials, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, Little Anthony and the Imperials, was down in Naples, Florida, on a Friday night, and Saturday night we were to be in Niagara Falls, Ontario.
Ooh.
Now I don't know how your geography is, but there's no direct line from Naples, Florida, to Niagara Falls, Ontario. It's not. You can't get there from here. So it was a flight from Naples. I think we probably got to a big hub. I don't know where it was, Atlanta. It might have been, you know, some other hub, and then a connecting flight to Buffalo, New York, and then a bus from Buffalo across the bridge into and clearing customs and all that entails. You know, make sure everybody's got get your papers in order. You know, so we had to leave the hotel in Naples. I think it was a 4 a.m. lobby call. You know, so you know, which means you got to be up and showered and packed before 4 a.m. You know, 4 a.m. the bus is leaving, kind of thing. So you know, and I was just thinking like that's going to be a brutal day to, be in the lobby at 4 a.m. and then have a show to do that night in Ontario. And then I had a gentleman at the time, and Anthony was in his 70s, been on the road for 50 years at that point. So when a gentleman in his 70s says, "Be in the lobby at 4 a.m." and you're a young whippersnapper, all you can say is, "Yes, sir, you got it. I'll be there." I've got no room to complain about this at all. So yeah, 4 a.m. lobby calls, very common.
Very awesome. So if you can give advice to someone that's just getting their feet wet in the music industry now, trying to play the bars like you did in NOLA
Right.
or in radio, and trying to get that marketing aspect of it before jumping into it, what would it be for them to do to become have that working class rock artist style lifestyle you have?
Well, I tell people, I just heard somebody else say this same exact thing the other day too. I thought I'd made this up, but it turns out I'm not the only one who's had this thought. If you can do anything else but music, do that. Because this will kick your butt and break your heart over and over it again. But when you get to the point, and this happened to me, I got to this point where I had a career. Like I said, I had the business expense account. I had the corporate Amex card, all this kind of stuff. And I just kind of hit the wall with it. And I realized the only thing I figured I could do was try to be a musician. And again, it was a tough realization, because I said, man, that's not going to be easy. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I said, this is going to be tough. And that's why I went to school. I said, I need to get some training if I'm going to really try to make a go of this. But if you got to that point where it's the only thing you can reasonably do, then you got to buckle down and really put in the work, put in the hours, and realize what it's going to take. And it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of heart, and it's going to take a lot of good luck. That said, as you've heard the saying goes, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Right? So once you put in the time and the hours, take everything you can, play everywhere you can, do anything you can, because like I said earlier, you never know what's going to lead to what. And all of the quote unquote big rock star stuff I've got has come from doing a $50 gig somewhere where I met somebody in the band who then recommended me to something else, because I showed up. To us, I mean sort of my circle of associates sort of in the New York area. It doesn't matter if the gig pays $50 or if it's at Madison Square Garden. Like, if you've taken the gig, if you've accepted the gig, you need to bring your full professional commitment to that gig at whatever level it is. If you said yes to the gig, now you got to bring your A game. You can't go into a gig. It's like, this isn't really important. I don't feel like it. Nobody's going to see it. No. You just don't know. You don't know who's watching it, especially now with everything. There's one person in the back of the room with the camera up.
Yep.
It's on YouTube. Like, it's not that Big Brother's watching, but that could be your audition for something else farther down the road. You don't even know about it.
Definitely, someone's always watching now.
Somebody's always watching. You could be auditioning for a gig that you don't, an opportunity that you don't even have yet. Because as soon as somebody gives you a name, say, hey man, you should check out this such and such drummer for this gig, and I'll be like, oh well, let me go online, let me see what start typing in what's on YouTube, what's the drummer doing, and if it's some gig in wherever, playing for 12 people, but you can see if somebody's is doing a solid job, and you can tell, you can like their playing, even if it's a terrible unprofessional camera phone video shot by a fan. You'll know.
Right.
So.
And you definitely are. Hard work does pay off there, and that comes along with some sacrifice you'll have to make along the way too. You have to sacrifice some other things in order to get the right foot in the right door to make things work. That's great advice, Ivan. Thank you. How does someone get in contact with you to either find out where you're playing, or get you to be on their show, or just chat with you?
I am highly Googleable. I can be found. Let me tell you something. Everything is at funkboy.net, funkboy.net. Not Funky Boy. Spelling counts in this day and age. Funkboy.net. There are links to Amazon for the book. There's links to YouTube for all my clips. There's links to Color Red Music, which is putting out my latest music. The book I've done is available in hardcover, softcover, Kindle edition, as a podcast, as YouTube clips. Like, any way you consume media, it's there for you in some format or other. And I can be reached, through the website and all that kind of stuff. I'm available. You need a bass player? You traveling? Call me. We
You
can work
can
out a
drive,
rate. You
you
need
can drive the van.
recordings? Yeah,
You,
you
yeah,
need homework. You need bass tracks on your recordings. I'll do them for you. No problem.
awesome. Definitely. Ivan, thank you so much for coming on and taking some of your time, and of course being flexible with our scheduling and getting you on here. It's been a great chat. I appreciate you being here.
Man, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and for sharing your platform and for, taking interest in my work and being willing to tell your friends and fans about it. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
I appreciate you. Have a good night.